Today, finance processes. What can central finance improve? Many patterns for deploying central finance are potentially possible, but often the chance to leverage a single version of the truth is a missed opportunity in process enablement. While central finance is part of SAP S4 HANA, some attention must be directed to understand the relevant finance process. Process and process orchestration. To understand how to use central finance, you must be aware of the difference between using process in central finance and a orchestration of a process with central finance. Using a process means that the end user will log on to central finance and execute the process. The process steps require that data be set up in central finance, and this data in turn is used to complete an activity. The data should set up available in the central finance, and the data in turn be used for activity. For process orchestration, the end user will log on to central finance and remotely execute an activity in a source system. This situation removes the need for the user to understand process in the source system, an understanding that may be unnecessary from the user's day-to-day perspective. Combining processes and process orchestration allow you and your organization to achieve more than is usually perceived as possible using tools accessible in central finance. Three basic patterns of processation form the basis for many other patterns. The first process acceleration pattern occurs during a project that can be replicated after go live as part of supporting transition. In this scenario, process acceleration starts with the configuration management of various processes in scope at the client level. The processes would serve as the common layer for all the users, such as SAP Application Integration Framework. Organization settings such as company code, controlling area, etc. must be set up with the future finance process scope in mind and not only account for work package initially in consideration. Three levels of process must be orchestrated in central finance as follows: organization structures such as company codes and how they are used in central finance, master data to enable integration across process and systems, transaction setting driven by organization structure, master data, and specific process step attributes. The second process orchestration pattern occurs when closing is carried out in the source system and the value flow must be understood. So there is a full closure in the source system and there is a value flow and there is a partial or no closure in the central finance. In this area, the project is live with central finance and the source system is used for full or partial closing. The nature of the closing must be aligned with the business and process must be managed to ensure no duplicate of values. The third processing pattern as shown in 5.3 occurs and organization wants to avoid using source system for closing and want instead to use central finance for closing the books. So in source no closure, all the closures are going to happen in central finance and there is a value flow. In this way, master data and transaction design requires different process management than the first two scenarios because transaction accounting must exist between the source system and central system. There is a transition accounting must exist between the source and central system. Process design will require change management and planning to shift closing from source system to central finance. Process design will require change management and planning to shift closing from source system to central finance for at least master data and will require controls and transaction access with an understanding of how and when data should be entered. Master data management requires a tool or at least a process to ensure that mapping errors for run transactions are not impacted on a real-time basis. Without this process, mapping errors will increase in all scenarios. Complaints also require process orchestration from central finance aligned to the values generated by the source system and closing actions that are centralized. Complaints are also require process orchestration from central finance aligned to the values generally generated by the source system and closing actions that are centralized. Payables and receivables. All processes and systems are built on the two logical parts of an organization, finance and logistics. Logistics tend to be process-oriented, while finance tends to be function-oriented, on which finance departments build daily, monthly, quarterly, and annual schedules. Once the data is in the finance domain of source system, this data is ready to be replicated into central finance. At this point, a multitude possibilities to consume data from process become operational in central finance. At this point, a multitude of possibilities to consume data from processes become operational in central finance. Each process provides different options and provides outcomes based on scope and target end state. account payable without central payment. The central finance engine needs master data for suppliers to be set up correctly according to the master data process in SAP S/4HANA. Let's say that organization has decided to use central finance for the reporting of payables with offsetting vendor ledger account. So purchase order, goods receipt, invoice receipt, accounting, payment, bank, the entire cycle will happen in the source. Oracle documents, portion account document will get duplicated, particularly open item, Oracle item duplicated in the central finance, and reports are getting generated. So only the reporting scenario is process scenario is source. Although the open item will be managed in the source system, central finance can consider item as an open item with the clearing documents to follow, or can use open item as a reporting item without a clearing document. Taking open item and clearing document will give fuller reporting capabilities with the correct item statuses and balances, including offsetting bank postings. Account payable with the central payments. One feature often requested by the customer of central payments is the ability to make payments centrally for all vendor activity that exists in underlying ERP system, both SAP and non-SAP. The delta open item is automatically marked as technically cleared, and the actual open item is duplicated in central finance. As a result, the technically cleared item cannot be accidentally paid in the source system. The actual open item clearing central finance behaves like a normal item and can be cleared in central finance with a payment or by offsetting entries. Two events will also occur in central finance. First, payment instruction to the bank will be generated in central finance, and second, as a result, bank reconciliation will also be carried out in the same central finance instance, which helps ensure process completion and integrity. So from the source system up to accounting will be there and technically clear. From the central finance, the process starts accounting, payment, and bank reconciliation. Payables with the direct and indirect procurement. We recommend separating the process of creating procurement orders based on procurement categories. The concept of shared resource is a long-standing virtue in finance process, unlike in logistic process. This virtue requires the following conditions be met. All payables are managed centrally, at least for the company code in question, if not across all company codes. Invoice must be sent to a single place for verification and approvals. Payment to the same supplier, independent of spending, are made together to reduce bank fee and the need for reconciliation. A single statement and payment address are delivered to the supplier from finance, independent of the point of origin of the purchase order. In this case, assume SAP Ariba is handling the indirect procurement and SAP procurement is creating automatic purchase orders from demand planning. The central payments features of central finance can handle and group payments across different categories of procurement and across different systems. So the source system will purchase order, goods receipt, invoice receipt, and accounting, whereas in Ariba, purchase order, goods receipt, and invoice receipt. So whatever the Ariba is replicated here, that on the top of it central finance. The process is from here. The process, part of the process, three-way matching. Three-way matching involves two distinct process scenarios but is not available out of the box. You will need to implement a central finance instance using a partner solution, open test vendor invoice management for SAP solutions. You see here, the sources are SAP ERP and the central finance having the central finance with the vendor invoice management. It's interconnected vendor invoice management in the source system, and there is a central OCR for reading the invoices and OT archives here. The VM would search for a purchase order linked to the invoice in the source system and carry out a virtual three-way match. Once the match is made, VM will make the posting in the source system for a three-way match on physical basis, which in turn generate payable posting to the replicated in central finance. For non-SAP, the same process will be carried out as part of project deployment on instant by instant basis, depending on the data model. Account receivable. In the following scenario, receivables without central payments. So here, the entire process will happen in the source system: sales order, outbound delivery, billing, accounting, payment, and banking. Central finance will have a reporting scenario on the accounting and the report. Once accounting payment is posted in the source system, an automatic copy is replicated to central finance as a new accounting document with a full audit trail. Receivables with the central finance. Your organization can move the handling of payments to customers into central finance as part of the project scope. The process would, however, be set up differently from a design and build scenario, including how users access customer activities. The difference is that the open effectively technically in the source system according to this configuration to ensure the items cannot be paid accidentally here up to the accounting and technically is cleared. From there on, central finance will make the payment. Receivables with central credit management. The reason would be obvious to any finance person as the movement in receivables and consequent payments drives the basic net exposure from the business perspective. The second part of the formula is how is managed given the logistic transaction still resides in the source system. The second part of the formula is how is this managed given the logistics transaction still resides in the source system. Credit management can also be used in central configuration that supports integration with the logistic transaction in the source system. In the source system, there is a sales order, delivery, billing, and accounting. And in central finance, the accounting document will be duplicated. In addition, there is a credit management for which there is a connection from the source order and the delivery or goods invoice. So to use the central credit management in central finance, your technical team must activate web services and set up the consumer proxy. The SAP basis team would need to configure the technical architect correctly as part of the project setup. Receivables with the central collections. This scenario gives us partial operational management for a customer. Better management would require the receivable payables be extended to actively manage activities linked to collecting funds from customers. The collections process in central finance allow you to automatically generate daily worksheets based on the collection status, which can be used as the basis for receivable collection by your collection specialist. So in addition to the credit management, there is a collections. Receivables with the central dispute. Here in addition to the credit management collection, there is a disputes also. With the central finance, your organization would benefit from using the central repository for managing the processing of receivables related dispute and for handling short payments or non-payment of outstanding invoices. Dispute can be raised directly in the central finance because open items are automatically replicated from the source system.